This is the foothills of the Appalachians. A lot of poor Caucasian people. Small black population. And the history and the culture is not real pro-education.
We do have a high dropout rate. We have a high teenage pregnancy rate. We have a lot of bad indicators, but I don't think we're alone in that.
We got 22,430 something people in the county. We're the leading county in the nation for poultry production.
We have an unemployment rate of over 10% in this county.
This is a rural school system of about 3,800 students. About 4 years ago when I got here, our graduation rate was about 58%. So we've been able to raise that to about 71% over the last 4 years with a concentrated, focused effort on engaging students in their own learning and getting teachers to believe in kids and what they're capable of doing. And there's a lot of barriers to overcome.
What's the key word there? They were, say it again, Jade, they were required. We're a Title I school system because a large number of our students now are on free and reduced lunch. And with the economy taking the downturn the last 3 years, that number has grown to some degree.
The recession has really hurt. We had to lay off some teachers, especially in a lot of good things like band and art.
We don't have any money in our schools. We barely have enough money for books. We had to share books, and our school's not the best shape.
The Board of Education had to make some harsh decisions last year and cut us back from 190 days on a school calendar to 160. And our days are longer because of the economy.
We've cut back to the point that there's very little meat left on the bone here. We're to the bone now. All that's left are teachers now.
No way is the state doing enough. This is basically, this is not a poor state overall. We have Atlanta, we have the coast, we have the mountains. This is not Mississippi. This is Georgia. But we have a philosophy that has run our state so that they have transferred the burden and the responsibility for public education from the state to the local.
Back in the 1980s, Georgia passed what was called the Quality Basic Education Program. When QBE was passed, it never was fully funded, and it's not fully funded to this day. But that's the general way we fund education. It's a combination of local funds, which is basically restricted to property owners, ad valorem taxes, and that portion that comes from the state government under the QBE Funding Act.
The party in general supports funding for education from whatever sources that we can get it from. When you look at the history of education finance in the state, you will see that there has been a downward trend in terms of financing going back to around 1968, 1970.
The folks are walking around here in these Gucci shoes out here in the hallway. They're the ones who are jumping.
I think there needs to be a new model of funding. The QBE has never been fully funded.
QBE needs to be looked at. I think that system is probably out of date. 55% of our state's budget goes to education. That's strong. That's really, really strong.
We have seen an increase in the amount of federal revenue we've gotten. We've seen a decrease in the amount of state revenue that we receive, primarily due to the austerity cuts, and then our local revenues have increased, basically out of necessity to fund that shortfall of QBE.
The cuts in education at the state level over the last couple of administrations have been potentially disastrous for public education unless local people step up and make up the difference. But there's only so many dollars in a place like Franklin County.
At some point, the legislature enacted the ability for counties to collect the special purpose local option tax for education.
The ELAST, education SLAST, as you put it, is to be used solely by school districts, not for operation, but for capital projects.
So we've been collecting this penny tax for quite a while, but the legislature made it available, and the school system, all they had to do is apply to have the election for it.
If you buy $1 worth of goods here, you're gonna pay 1 penny on that dollar. It goes toward the education splash tax. 1 penny is not gonna make or break anybody. If we put all those pennies together, you're talking about millions of dollars.
We can build buildings and get them built because Georgia has this program. Otherwise, we'd have to get it out of our tax base or complete bond issues, and things like that they have to do in other states. And that'd be very difficult in a poor district like this.
If we vote this in again, we're going to build a new high school, which is in real bad shape right now. It's outdated, the halls are too narrow. When they change rooms, it's just a mad rush, and they all packed in this little narrow hallway.
When you have 1,200 or more students going through these halls that aren't big enough for 4 people to walk down, well, you're looking at all kinds of issues. They don't have enough time to get to their locker and then go to class because the halls are so crowded they can't move. And so they have to carry everything in their book bag. My daughter's back went out. She had to go to a medical doctor and then a chiropractor because she went to pick up her book bag and her back went out.
When you build a new high school, that leads to every child that comes through the system benefits from that. And also, let's face it, when the Chamber of Commerce brings a prospective business here, the first thing they want to see is the high school. How's your high school doing? Because if we're going to bring our employees here, we want a good school system for the children to attend.
And because our overall goal is to graduate more students, and we want to get up to like a 90% graduation rate at least. And in order to do that, we have got to have a modern facility. And these kids go to a middle school that we built with our last SPLOST, or the last couple of SPLOST, that's very modern. So, you have kids going 3 years to a middle school that has all this, and then they go to a high school that they think's very boring. We're trying to get our teachers to teach differently to these kind of students, and they're not particularly motivated to do that in a building that looks like that either.
Some of the leaders have decided that the the buildings do not look good, so therefore they need to enhance them so that these kids can feel proud of these buildings so that they'll think better in life. But see, that's not a good reason.
We have to paint the picture and say, here's the needs of the school system. And then the community, can make the decision whether they want that.
Ultimately, who will suffer if this doesn't pass it's our students and the school system.
Well, I think our teachers are very much for it, all of our staff, and so we vote.
By the way, the Franklin County Chamber is 100% behind the county splash tax.
It just seems that 1% isn't very much, and if it can help out, the children are going to have a rough enough time as it is.
Yes, because of the needs that we have, and because the economy the way it is, and frankly because I don't want my property taxes to go up again.
What you hear in Franklin County is senior citizens not wanting to pay anything for education.
The people in this county don't need another tax on them.
I'm opposed to the splash because it's another form of taxation.
They'll sell the public these fat ideas, but then when it becomes reality with the money coming in, it goes where they want it. It becomes pet projects. It's a slush fund.
E-Splosh, don't have the documentation with me, but I can link it to Karl Marx Communist Manifesto.
I'm going to do my part to help not to pass it, but I don't think there's going to be many people voting.
Yeah, this is it. This is the only thing on the ballot. We're hoping for about 1,200.
It wouldn't surprise me if half registered voters in this county had no idea this election was going to take place.
Will I vote? Yeah. I might now.
Suppressing turnouts is something you always want to do, unless it's your voters.
You kind of call the election when you think it's going to favor you the best to begin with.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that local officials don't use the timing of votes. You start talking about a very small number of people who are governing through elections.
The nice thing about the SPLOST is everybody's got a vote.
It's definitely regressive, no doubt about that. Even among the low-income poor families, they think it's quote-unquote fair. They may not understand the economic principles.
If you buy something, you pay tax. But when it cuts off my retirement check every month, I got a problem with that.
Well, I'm not going to say the poor have to pay any more. I also believe that a sales tax is a fair tax. I mean, everybody pays regardless.
You're not generating taxes off of someone for being successful or pursuing the American dream. No one says they have to spend those dollars. You know, this is actually the type of taxes that encourages thrift. I mean, take folks in government housing, for instance. They're not going to see an increase in the millage rate. So even if you raise the millage rate, it's those landlords and property owners that are going to have to eat that cost.
Whether you have the poorest of the poor, the richest of the rich, both of them probably have money that they spend that's not spent wisely.
That 1% tax is going to cause them a hardship over putting more burden on the property owners when we're already pretty well burdened anyway. I think it's very fair.
Education should be about preparing our children to take this state and to take the reins of this state. And we need to be doing everything we can to plant good seeds while at the same time protecting the taxpayers that are planting those seeds.
Education is not only localized, it's the whole country. It's not just you or I. It's not because I have children in and he doesn't. If these kids are not taught in a way that they should be and given the opportunity through education, then it's going to affect the whole country, whether you think so or not.